wonderful good day, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk. My name is Gaby Billett. I'm Managing Director for the Journey International, and I'm here. I've been with the Journey and Brandon Bays and Kevin Billett for 25 years now, and we designed this little Real Talk clip on a weekly basis to just share some of the amazing things that the journey is good for, that we can use it in our lives. And it's just, today we actually talk about accidents, because I was actually involved in an accident, a road accident 2 weeks ago, and it's kind of really knocked me sideways. And I thought, what a great way of actually bringing this issue in our Real Talk today. And my guest today is Kevin Billett, who is CEO for the Journey, Brandon's life partner, husband, designer of all sorts of events. And we have quite a few great stories to share about accidents, some of the stuff that we have witnessed in the journey with our delegates, with friends of ours, with ourselves, with family members, and how amazing the journey actually, how miraculous it can help with removing some of the issues, the traumas, the shocks with Journey. Hi, Kevin. Good morning. Good day to you. Thanks for joining us here.
You got my brain ticking over here, because we've got a lot of common experiences of accidents and what can happen with journey work. So I'm interested to see where our talk goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And I actually wanted to start with the most recent one, which is still a little bit with me. Well, quite with me, because I was involved, as you know, and I've actually posted it in Facebook, so quite a few friends of mine around the world know. But I had a serious car accident, and so deeply grateful that I walked away with it with a couple of bruises and a shock. But the car is not yet fully established if it's a write-off, but it certainly looks like
a write-off, Gaby. Yes, for sure.
It does. And so it really knocked me. And I've been driving for 50 years. I have actually, in my 50 years of driving, never had an accident. So that was a pretty serious event. And I have had, I think, 3 or 4 journeys now to clear out the shock. And I was so tense. It was my body was like furled up, and for the shock to for the body to find the courage to open again. It was some of the things that worked so well was just meditating or listening to Brandon's healing sand meditation, doing a journey process, allowing it all to come up and out. And so I feel like I'm almost back to normal. So my immune system took a little bit of a crash too, and I got a cold, which is, I think we said the other day, I think this is the first cold I've had since 2019. So it's definitely been something. But we have some really great stories to share, and I know that you there is. I don't know where you want to start, Kevin, so I'm just going to hand over to you now.
I'm going to start with you, Gab, because one of the most radical examples of healing that I've ever seen was when you were involved in a water park accident in Corfu in 2004. And we had gone with Brandon, with you, with Cliff, with my son and my nephew, to this water park, and you guys had gone on a water slide which was extremely dangerously designed. And as you and Brandon slid down, she took a bump at the bottom where this tube turned into some kind of concrete obstruction, and she took a bump, but you took a full-blown knock to the head at high speed. And the first I heard was, like, mobile phone, Gabby's been injured, come to the entrance to the park. And Brandon walked you over, and my stomach was churning before I saw you. And when I saw you, I've got to tell you, it's like I felt sick. I mean, you were hobbling. Brandon was half dragging, half carrying you. And with this bump to the head, your head had expanded. You looked like you had a boxer's training helmet on, but it was your own skin. Your head was so enlarged with the fluid that was already building up. you looked like you could die. And Brandon took charge and took you to the ambulance, and Cliff and I and the boys followed in a car, and we were just praying all the way. But as we were praying, what Brandon related was she was doing journey work with you, because what we've seen over the years is that at the point of impact or the point of an accident where something goes wrong and impacts the body, there is a shock. And there is some fear, some deep emotions get stirred up and brought to the surface instantly. And particularly at an early stage, if you can roll the cameras back in your mind to the point of impact and stay open to the emotions, so stay open to the fear. And often with big accidents like this, it can be fear of death. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And Brandon did this with you in the ambulance on a 20 or so minute ambulance ride. And she rolled the cameras back. She accessed the emotions that you were feeling, immediately before the impact, on impact, after impact, and took you into a journey opening, a drop through of the emotions so that you let all of them flood through your body until there's nothing left, until there's just spacious awareness. So instead of shutting down, instead of bracing against, instead of kind of, freezing in the face of emotions, open and open and open. She did this with you for 20 minutes in the ambulance. And when you got out of the ambulance after that 20 minutes, we saw you and your head had already, the swelling had gone down by, I want to say 2/3. I couldn't believe it. You already looked clearer, and just to look at you, you looked as if something extraordinary was shifting in a healing way inside you. And I know you were admitted to hospital overnight, and they found that you'd actually created a fracture, and they thought it might have been from a previous accident. They weren't really sure, but you healed in an extraordinarily quick time. And we thought you were likely to die with the impact of the blow. The results of that can be absolutely traumatic. And with the physical symptoms that you had, I thought you were going to be in hospital for a couple of weeks. And as I remember it, you stayed in overnight. They let you out at the end of the next day. And the healing was fluid, was quick, was absolutely extraordinary. So yeah. I'm sure you remember that. What was your experience from the inside out?
Oh man, Kevin, that it actually later on, quite a some time after, it could have been years after, I did a journey process at one of our events, and this issue came up, and it really kind of became clear that if Brandon hadn't been there, I wouldn't have survived the event. Right. That was like as clear as anything. It was that dangerous. And the other thing that happened was actually what happened was in this tube where we came out was concrete. Yeah. It wasn't even metal, it was concrete. And we were sitting in a little plastic boat. And as we came out of the tube, a wind gush came from underneath and turned the little boat to its side. Yeah. So Brandon got hit also, but lighter, and I got the full whack, and then we came out. And so that was how the incident happened. Right. And I don't remember much from the trip to the hospital.
I'm sure.
What I also remember is I had an X-ray taken, or the hospital took an X-ray, and I put that away. I didn't even look at it, and I picked it up a year later. And what actually happened, because we came out of hospital 24 hours later, 3 days afterwards, we drove somewhere. I think we drove to eat, and there was quite a bumpy road. Okay. And this bumpy road actually caused the blood. There was a huge blood clot up at the top of my head, and the blood kept coming down. And I was blue in my face for 2 months. So the accident and the swelling and everything was pretty much gone in the overnight time at the hospital. They just kept me in for observation. but the blood and the
Yes.
bruise under my eyes, that kind of stayed on for quite some time.
Well,
And
I remember that. Yeah.
And I saw in the X-ray that there was a huge blood clot in the center of my head. So even that, the fact that we drove on this bumpy road to release the blood and let it come down was healing it itself. So
well, we could see once that bruise was coming out and moving, we could see that there was, or that was a signal of the healing that was taking place so radically. So I guess we're saying here that the first thing is that the healing process can speed up quickly after accidents using journey work. So that's the first thing. And I can remember my sister Deb's relating to me that her son, so my nephew Sully, was, I think he would have been about 11 or 12 years of age, and he broke his leg quite badly playing football. And so, they reset the leg, put him in a cast, and they said, okay, you keep the cast on for 6 weeks. You can't play football for another, whatever it was, 2 or 4 weeks after that. And then, we'll see how you go. Well, Deb did journey work with him, including this roll the cameras back technique. What were you feeling at the time of the impact when you knew your leg was broken like this? And after 2 weeks, she did, I think 2 or 3 processes with him journey-wise. After 2 weeks, he was just getting frustrated with the cast and was kind of, hobbling and kind of trying to run around the place, putting weight on his leg. And Deb said, well, we just took the cast off. And, he was fine. He was walking. And they took him in for an X-ray, and they said, how long has this leg been broken? And she said 2 weeks. And he said, impossible. And he was playing football again after about 2.5 weeks. Wow. Now, this doesn't normally happen with broken bones, and it was broken, I believe, in 2 places. But
6 weeks normally, 6 weeks if you're lucky.
That's what they told him. That's what they told him, yeah. But this was 2.5 weeks, and if you give the body the right inputs, it can heal magnificently in short periods of time. We've got a fabulous example of this with a relatively well-known sports person. His name is Jamie Bolsh, and he is a British athlete who I believe still holds the world indoor record for 400 meters, set ages ago. But anyway, in 2002, it was the Commonwealth Games, and he was in training 2 weeks before the Games, and he pulled a hamstring. So the musculature and connections that go on in the back of your leg. And he saw a physiotherapist, and the physiotherapist said, Jamie, you're out of action for 6 weeks. It's like, Commonwealth Games, forget about it. You need physiotherapy, and this is going to take 6 weeks to heal, because that's how long it takes to heal a pulled hamstring. And Jamie did journey work. He found a journey practitioner who did physical journeys, so like opening into the consciousness of the accident, feeling the emotions, doing this type of work with him. And when I met Jamie in 2015, he said to me, I was out for 6 weeks. I got some journey work. He said, I didn't really know what it was, but I thought, what the hell, give it a go. He actually healed in time to go to the Commonwealth Games, and he won a silver medal in those same games. Now, he was written off, right? And in 2002, came back within 2 weeks, was, in the opening races, eventually won a silver medal. So this speeds up healing. And that's not the only thing with it as well, Gab, and I just wanted to kind of ask you about this, the ramifications, because if we let this trauma stay in the body, my experience is it forms cell memories, and those cell memories have impacts over time. And you began to kind of go there a few minutes ago when you were talking about the kind of fallout from your accident. What is your experience of the results of not dealing with the emotional trauma, not dealing with the cell memories that can attach in the body after these types of accidents? If you don't deal with it, what can happen?
Well, in my world, having been with the journey for 25 years, it's an impossibility, because I know so well how it's all connected. Even the car accident, I was absolutely blown out of the water when by
Oh, excuse me, I do apologize.
by the first journey process that I did, and actually our friend from Australia is here, and she came up in the morning without doing a process. She just said, I just want girlfriend time. I just stay with you. And we just kind of sat, and then she put her hand on me, and she just kind of got me to relax and to open. And out of nowhere, a picture of me just post birth showed up. And it was like, I wasn't thinking about anything like this, but my face physically felt, or must have felt like it felt just after I was born. And I said, this is really, really weird. And I have I have all of our old family albums here in Greece. And so I actually went to the album and I showed Laurie, I said, look, that's what I looked like when just after I came out of my mum, and then I did a process later on that day, I think, or the next day. And it was actually a birth trauma. And it was like watching two identical movies. And it was the birth trauma was almost exactly the same as the accident. The whole, I could move from the impact to rolling out of the car was almost identical to being born. So it was also an opportunity to clear something really, really old. And then an openness comes, a quietness comes, a deeper freedom comes. It's almost something is removed, and you didn't even know it was there in the first place. So those are the incredible.
My experience is that it's almost like life is teaching us lessons through these traumas and saying, okay, you get to repeat the lesson until you actually get it, until you learn it. So, going back to athletes again, if you look around at the various sports where people are prone to injuries, if they don't deal with the emotionality of those injuries, they tend to re-injure themselves in the same place. Now, you could look at it physically and say, yes, of course, there's a weakness there. But we know from journey work that weakness can be completely resolved, absolutely negated, if someone is willing to open and face the emotionality of the trauma and to do some simple journey work with it. So, the repeat injuries can then stop. So that's one of the things that comes out of not dealing with the trauma. I've got one personally, actually, Gab, and this is another car accident. It's a story that I've never told you. Back in, it would have been late 80s, I was driving a car at night in the dark on relatively narrow roads with 5 people, including myself, in the car, and was in a rush to get to a meeting. And I was in an area that I was very unfamiliar with, and so was driving pretty quickly. And the guy behind me was a professional rally navigator from that area. So he knew the roads like the back of his hand. And so he was talking me through what was ahead, what was ahead, what was ahead. And I began to drive to his instructions and go too fast. And he miscalled a bend, completely miscalled it. And I was going too fast for the bend. Car went out of control, entirely my fault. Clipped a banking. This is out in the countryside, so clipped a bank. And the car rolled. Now, this was major trauma before the journey had even been invented, okay? So the car rolled. Thankfully, no one was hurt. But the upset, the trauma, obviously lodged with me. So then, you forget, you do journey work and you think, okay, it's not about that. It's about whatever circumstances or relationships or whatever issues you've got in life. Then, okay, eventually, I'd done a little bit of journey work, but not on this. I was in Corsica with you, with Cliff, with the whole family, and we were on a holiday there. And we were in a queue of traffic coming up to a junction. So I'm driving, Brandon is sitting by my side, kids are in the back, and she told me what to do, that I was doing something wrong. And it's like, turn this way, go this way, don't do that, do this. I don't remember exactly. And I exploded and kind of, metaphorically bit her head off. And I said, don't you ever tell me how to drive. I said, I'm in the car. You want to sit in the seat? I said, I'll stop. I'll get out. You get out. It was like this. It's like, you can drive if you want to drive. I said, but, if you're in the passenger seat, you just shut up. And she looked at me and she said, what is that all about? I just told you to turn right instead of left or something, And I stopped and opened it and went, oh, my God. As a result of the accident, and this would have been 20 years before, I'd made a vow that I would never, ever take anyone's instructions again while driving, that I was responsible and I would not listen to anyone else. And obviously, the emotionality of the original accident drove a lot of anger to the surface when someone else was telling me how to drive, because neurologically I'd associated it with the old accident. And so I said, oh my God, I said I had this accident 20 years ago and I made a vow I would never listen to someone. In the car, it's down to me, don't listen to anyone else. And she said, okay, I think you need a journey process. And so that's what happened. So like this, I think it can play out in a lot of different ways. If we ignore these accidents, they can create weaknesses in the body where repeat injury is likely. They can cause us to behave in protective ways that end up getting distorted. And ultimately, I think in some cases, they can lead to further illness down the line. If we don't deal with emotional issues, they can fester, and the cell memories can, keep kind of knocking on our door, going, lesson to be learned here. And if we don't learn them, the message is going to keep coming until we do.
Absolutely.
Coming here, do you remember the time in South Africa with Brandon when she broke her leg?
I wasn't with you. I was in Austria in a hospital having my arm fixed because I broke my arm the year before, and so I was in Austria healing. Right. That's another incredible story. I'm happy to share. You go with South Africa first.
We were in South Africa preparing for, oh gosh, it would either be a no ego retreat or a life transformation week. I don't remember which, but at the start of an 8-day retreat. And Brandon and I walked to welcome the delegates, and we'd walked through the restaurant area in this resort, and we're exiting through a different door. And it was dark outside, and Brandon thought there were 2 steps and there were 3 steps. And so she went to step on the ground and there was nothing there. Hit awkwardly, heard a snap, and she had a horrible break in her lower leg. And she collapsed on the floor, and she said, my leg's broken. So, we protected her, we kept her warm, and roll the cameras back. Well, we're waiting now for someone to bring a car. Roll the cameras back. What did you feel? And she felt the emotion. We did a little bit of journey work. Someone took her in a car to a hospital to get her leg set, and it was a nasty break. 2 or 3 places, and like a green stick fracture in one of the lower leg bones. And so the person in the car who was driving her was a journey practitioner. So same thing, roll the cameras back, feel the emotions, open, drop through, feel whatever's here. I took the first session that night because Brendan wasn't available. So the introductory session, setting up for the whole retreat. And she was back on stage the next day. Sunny, looking as if nothing had happened except she had a cast on a leg, and taught the whole retreat from complete open awareness. The leg healed. I think it took, you probably would remember better than I, but this was a nasty, nasty fracture. And I think it was about a month that it took to heal. Yeah. And it could have taken, this would have been normally, I think, 6 to 8 weeks because of the complexity of it. Yeah. But, she came back from there, was teaching in Holland and running around on a scooter there with a cast in the air. And do you remember that in the No Ego retreat in Holland? She was like an Easter bunny around the place, bouncing around, and healed incredibly because the trauma had been dealt with.
Yeah, I remember that time really, really well. But that was also the time when, as I said, I was in Austria. I can't remember. It was the year after I had that head accident that you started with.
Well, that was 2005, so this would be 2006. We're talking about now.
So we were, I think we just started the autumn events of that year, and we were in Holland. And I had a little, well, as you may remember, I had a water skiing accident the month before. And so I was back at work, and my leg wasn't quite as strong as it would normally be because I hurt my hamstring. There wasn't really much to do, but on the Saturday morning, I went out into the hallway, and it was in Jaarbeurs, and just to get the trainers in for the trainers meditation. And as I walked, I slipped with my shoes, and because my leg was so weak, I couldn't pull it back, which you would normally do. And so I fell on the ground and landed. I was worried about my leg, so I didn't think about anything else, but I landed on my elbow, and I actually shattered my elbow so badly that the doctor said, or the surgeon said, this looks like a cookie. You know, if you sit on a cookie, it's that bad. So it was taken care of in a hospital in Wales. And to cut a long story short, when the cast came off, the arm was at an angle, and he said, don't worry too much. He said, do some physio, but if it doesn't straighten, we can do another operation, but not for another 9 or 12 months. And so I went to regular checkups. And then after the 9 months, I was really starting to feel like a little bit crippled and handicapped because I needed to move my whole body to reach for something.
Yes.
And I said to the doctor, I said, I said, you said I can have another operation. And he said, well, can you do this? And can you do that? And does it hurt? And I said, I can do this. I can do this. It doesn't hurt. He said, I wouldn't touch it.
Right.
I got really, really upset because I thought, well, you know, there are some sports people who have endless number of fractures in their body and they're back, you know, they're being taken care of by medicine and they're back in no time at all. And this guy is now telling me I just have to stay in my world was handicapped, you know. I think my spine was starting to move. So I thought, whatever happens, this guy is not going to do whatever. So I walked away, and then on my way home, in this anger phase that I was in, I just kept opening with it, and then out of nowhere, the voice came, "You're from Austria. So many skiing accidents happen in Austria. You have specialists in Austria non-stop, you know." So I called my sister. I said, do you know somebody who specializes in arm injuries like wrist, elbow, shoulder? And she said, actually, as it so happens, we do have a really excellent specialist in the Salzburg hospital. So I went to him, and I was so grateful because he just told me it's just scar tissue, simple operation. We take the scar tissue out and your arm will be probably not completely straight, but 7/8, you know. And if you want it 100% straight, 8, you know, then we can do that too after another period.
Another operation, though, right? Okay.
So I said, yes, please. I went into hospital, and that was the time when I had to stay in Austria because I was in hospital for a few days. I did come out of the operation. It was nearly straight, but physio had to start straight away. And he said, you need to stay here. And I was in hospital for a few days. And the reason I'm telling this story, because I ran away from Austria when I ran away from my home, from my parents' home when I was 17. I couldn't get out of there quick enough. I went from home to Salzburg, from Salzburg to Vienna. Age 25, I met my husband. I left for the UK. So Austria was some kind of negative place for me. I know now that there was a lot of underneath stuff about the Second World War, the shame, the guilt. My father was an SS officer. So it was almost like a running away. I found out later. I also, through my father, was very, very negative towards medicine and doctors because they lost their second child through a medical fault. If you hear the story, it really was that. So I was growing up with we don't go to the doctor. They're like this, you know.
Yeah.
So here I am in Austria in the Landeskrankenhaus in Salzburg, and I have to be in there for a whole week. And I'm looking around, and it's summer. It's like August time, I think, and it's as beautiful as ever. I just saw Austria with eyes that I hadn't seen it before.
Yeah.
And I was so extremely well taken care of that I fell in love with the nurses, the doctors, and I couldn't say enough good. And so all of my history of trying to eradicate, you know, run away and just close the door behind me and dislike the medical profession was healed in that one week. It was the most amazing time. And it never fails to amaze me how somehow life itself finds its little windows and opportunities for healing the past. And that really, that whole accident was that. It was almost as if it was divinely orchestrated and designed for me to be able to let go of some past issues that I didn't know I had, you know. So accidents, yes, they happen. We need to work on them, but to sometimes let it reveal what it's why, you know. And so just stay open
is so known for and so good at. It's clearing the traumas of the past so we can live healthily in the present and create a different future. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I mean, I could go on and on about stories of healing like this. One that's coming to mind as you were talking there. I was teaching a communication course one time in London, and there was a woman in about the third row back, and I could see that she was just kind of crunching like this, and she looked like she was in pain. And eventually she just put her hand up and she said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to leave. And I said, what is it? You look like you're in pain. And she said, well, I had a car accident on the way here this morning. And she said, I must have got whiplash because my neck is really hurting. She said, my shoulders are tensing up and I'm in incredible pain coming up from my shoulders through my neck into my head. She said, I'm just going to have to go home and lie down. And I said, well, would you be willing just quickly to work with a practitioner and see if they can help? She said, okay. So a practitioner took her out of the room, and 20 minutes later, she came back into the room and she's just sitting upright. She comes back to the same seat, and she came back in, and I said, so what happened? And she said, I don't really know, but your practitioner took me back to the accident, did some work with me. And she said, I feel better than I've felt in months. She said, there's no pain. She said, there's no result of the whiplash. And I'm sure that was whiplash. My head is absolutely fine. My neck, shoulders are relaxed. Off we go. And she just sat through the whole wow. So if you can catch this stuff early, you can prevent a lot of the deeper symptoms setting in. Healing can take place quickly. And then if you can't, or if you've got old injuries, old traumas, same principle applies, and obviously you may have experienced some lessons throughout life before you get to it this way, but it eases things up. It still allows a deep cellular healing to take place, and in my experience, same as yours, leaves you in peace, leaves you spacious and relaxed and able to live life in a way that you weren't before if you use the work with it. It's beautiful stuff.
Beautiful, really, really. It works. We know it does. And that's just a kind of accident, so many times people don't really consider that journey work could do anything for that, and yet it is so powerful, and really, as you said, speeds up the healing process, clears out the trauma, and maybe, not just maybe, so often helps us to heal something from the past, to be present, or to live healthily here in the present.
Yeah,
so I just also wanted to briefly mention that we have, for those of you who may not have done a journey workshop before, we have a very, very busy autumn schedule. We're starting again in September. There is events on pretty much all time zones. In English, we also have events in foreign languages. I think there is just the the link posted here, and we will also post it in the various channels that this talk shows up. So if you have had some injuries, or if what we have shared here appeals to you, or you know somebody who may have had an accident, or is somebody as accident prone as I am, please get them to the journey, because there is some really powerful work that can help clear that out. And we really, really look forward, and that includes Brandon and all of our journey team, look forward to meeting you there. And so I think we've shared so many different short stories, Kevin, and I really want to thank you for your contribution, because
Pleasure to join you, Gaby.
that was quite amazing, and I'm inspired. So I hope everybody else.
It is inspiring, Gaby. The body is capable of miraculous healing if we know how to access the body's wisdom, the healing genius inside, and allow it to do its thing. It's relatively straightforward. It's emotional. It clears out all sorts of traumas, not just accident trauma, but life trauma. And we go through so much in life that we keep under wraps, we ignore, turn our backs on, run away from, or shut down. If we can access those traumas, those memories, and deeply heal them, our lives are changed forever. And when it's happened to me, I know it's happened to you, and it's happened to hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and long may that continue.
Absolutely. And it's more, the one thing I haven't mentioned, because we got so engrossed in talking about accidents, but we have, for the first time ever, because we're going through challenging time, dropped the price for the Journey Intensive quite considerably. So it's become, we want the Journey to be a household name, to be used in every household, because of the different ways it helps with healing illnesses, accidents, emotional issues, anything, relationship issues. And so whatever the issue is, we didn't want the money situation to stand in the way. And so we started earlier in the year to call it the Journey in Every Household. And so we've dropped it for the euro price. We dropped it to under 150 euros.
Gaby, I'm to interrupt you there and tell you that I realized that is cheaper than the Journey was when it started first in 1994. It used to be originally £195. So about, what is that these days? I don't know, 215, 220 euros. Now more than that, 230, 240 euros back in 1994. So just to put a perspective on that, it really is.
I know, it's crazy. And having gone online with the work, it kind of takes a lot of our expenses and overheads away also. We still have a massive team there. We have Journey practitioners there supporting, but it's possible. It's possible doing it this way. And it's delivered in a way that it's as potent, as powerful as it has been in live seminars, if not more, and so that's why. So please share, if you come across this video and you are a practitioner or Journey grad, share it around, share it on your pages, and let those people who haven't come across the Journey know about it, and how healing, how powerfully healing it is. That's the ask. So on that note, I think I just would love to thank you, Kevin, for joining me here today.
Great pleasure, Gaby. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Bye.